Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. I shall we see what's going on a lovely island of Fawnhallow today, where I didn't realise the title screen could focus on hotel guests. That's surprising. That's a spoiler, I suppose, if you're not from the future, mind you. Which I think 99% of people who watch Animal Crossing videos are not watching it in the future, they're watching it as it gets uploaded, but I might be wrong about that. I don't know. It just feels like it would be a bit dated otherwise, wouldn't it? You just sort of watch a video and be like, oh, it's, that came out ages ago. But anyway, good evening everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 10:38 PM on Wednesday, May 6th, 2026. So yeah, I mean, Mira is actually also an ex-Fawnhallow resident, so I think we're just getting a load of ex-Fawnhallow residents, because we had puddles yesterday, right? I think so. So we might just see everyone who's ever been at Fawnhallow just visiting again. I've done 4 rooms now. And we'll be doing 2 more today. And then maybe some more Happy in Paradise customizations. Oh, it's Greta, right? If I'm not mistaken, you're from Fawnhallow, right? Oh, don't mind me, darling. I'm just visiting. I'm Greta. Well, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and I'm sure I'll see you around. I don't know what we can really say around it. Tried to nip down for a beach of photos, and suddenly I've been staring at my phone for an hour. I'm trying to create memories of my vacation. I can stare at my phone all I want when I'm back home. Sorry, I'm not doing a voice right now. It would just be too many to think about doing. So yeah, we're going to have people visiting Fawnhallow who are just going to be walking around. I don't know how many can be at a certain time. I think it'd be awesome if all 10 of them could be walking around at any given moment. I don't think that's possible. I think what it probably is it like reinstantiates it like every hour or maybe every time you enter or leave. That a different, I'm going to guess 2 hotel guests will be walking around. Honestly, Mira's here though. Say hello to an old bud. But yeah, what am I gonna... Oh, you know what I am gonna talk about? So, Norma9, one of 2 YouTubers I now watch. It's no longer only one anymore. In fact, I don't even really watch Norma9 all that much. I watch sometimes his de facto, not official editor, Library of Laterno's uploads. But this is the first time I actually watched like a proper Norma9 video for a long while. I kept seeing from clips that he had a different overlay with some random characters on, and I was like, who the heck are these characters? And I looked it up, and it was apparently like, oh, he's helping publish a game. I don't know necessarily what he's doing, or I assume he's just like giving advice or something of that ilk. And it's called Demon's Bluff, and I was like, oh, I heard that name, like I think it's been mentioned before, or I've seen it like in his titles. I thought it was just like a roguelite or something. And it turns out, yes, it is a roguelite. It turns out, though, what it's rogueliting is not, like a card game, like I thought it was. It turns out it's a social deduction game roguelite. And upon hearing this, I was like, how is that even possible? Like, how do you have a social deduction roguelite? Not necessarily because of roguelite elements. You could do roguelite elements, but it's more like, how do you have people, essentially, who do it? So I watched a bit of it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually my type of roguelite. This is genuinely it, and like I found it. It's essentially what it looks like to me. It's basically a logic puzzle roguelite. Where it's kind of Blood of a Clock Tower-esque, I would say. Where there's basically your deck is now a load of different character roles, and then you are basically someone who sees all the character roles, but you don't see who the villains are, and you had to basically suss out who's a villain based on what they say. I'll put you up here. And they all have very consistent logic the entire time. Like, I will always tell the truth. If I'm a villager, I will always lie if I'm not. Or if I'm this type of villain or whatever. And they all have, like, different abilities and stuff. And I looked at it and I was like, this is amazing. Immediate wish list. This is my type of game. So, yeah, I don't know. When that comes out, I guess I'll play it. And we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, hello, what's up, Mira? Whoa, I can't believe it. How old are you, dear? Don't give me that look. It's your name, Mira. I was hoping I'd run into you. How's stuff? What about things? You still liking life on Fawnhallow? Wow, I think I'd run into some old friends here, but you? It's so awesome to see you, Cottontail. Anything else to say? Gotta say more about vacation night strolls. The cool, the quiet, the stars, it all just feels right to me. The only problem is it's way too easy to lose track of time. If you're not careful, then bam, surprise. Once that happens, hey, sunrise strolls are pretty good too. Yes, so you can see that we have 2 angels as visitors, but there is another outfit. I don't know why no one's worn it yet, to be honest. Because I think all the ones who've been wandering around, like Ava from yesterday, was also an angel, but yeah. But anyway, what a fascinating concept, by the way. A social deduction roguelite. And basically, like, each time you suss it out correctly, you get different types of characters added to the pool. And they'll sort of, like, basically change how things interact in interesting ways. Like, one of them introduced basically Blood of Clock Tower's equivalent of a poison condition or a drunk condition. Where the characters will, if they are poisoned, their ability doesn't work and they always lie or something. Something like that, I can't remember. And I just went, this is brilliant. Because it's not actually a social deception. You can't do a social deception roguelite on a literal level because you would need multiple people, right? I mean, I guess unless AI gets insanely good or something, but then you have a whole nother sort of a can of worms to deal with. But you can definitely take the mechanics of a social deduction game and then that basically effectively becomes a social deduction roguelite. But really what it is basically is a logic game. Like one of those Einstein logic puzzle thing-majigs. Well, actually, I don't know this for certain. This is why I wanted to talk about it. Is I don't know for sure if it's guaranteed to always have a solution. Like, it's always solvable, you know? Because that would be interesting in its own right, I think. Because that's a thing from a game design perspective. Like, a logic puzzle game design only works if it's solvable every time, right? If it wasn't solvable every time, you'd be like, this is an awful logic puzzle. Like, it's a thing like with Minesweeper, right? Like, Minesweeper, amazing game, except for the fact that you can have, it is possible for 50-50 random chances to spawn in, which is, you know, more like counter to exactly what you want from a logic puzzle. Because a logic puzzle, it's from the very beginning, you should be able to work out for sure 100% guaranteed, provided you do everything correctly. You should be able to work out the final answer, guaranteed every time. You know, if you had a perfect Minesweeper solver, it should be 100% guaranteed that it will always come to the correct answer. But that's the thing with Minesweeper, is like it doesn't actually technically do that. Well, I think modern Minesweepers might do, but older Minesweepers, they always had a chance for a 50-50, where basically you'd get to the corner and it could be either of 2 squares, for one directly in the corner, one off from the corner. And you don't know which one it is, so you just have to guess, which is obviously not great design for a logic puzzle, which is why I'm so curious about this game, because I don't know for sure. I didn't look it up, and maybe I should have. But I didn't look it up to see if it's actually 100% guaranteed. Every single puzzle you're given, you can 100% solve. Because if that's guaranteed, that immediately shoots up in my ranking. Because the thing I see there is there's definitely going to be a lot of complexity within the nature of it, such that, you know, if there's a logic puzzle created and there's so many different roles and things and like modifications and stuff which could go on at the same time, I think there's a huge risk that you give something and it's not possible without guesswork, which to me is sort of like the death knell for any sort of logic based game, right? Like you just can't have that. You just can't have a situation where it's like, oh, it's ambiguous exactly what the answer may or may not be. Is that a shooting star already? Wow. Yeah, what was I going with this? So, if it is guaranteed every time, one, incredible, but two, I was also thinking, like, how would you make that work in a programmatic standpoint? Because, I mean, it's very easy to make sure logic is consistent, like what they say is not an impossible situation. Like, because you might look at it and be like, well, you'd have to generate a puzzle, and then you had to figure out if the puzzle is actually solvable, and then figure out from there. Well, I think unless there are different roles here, which might actually change how this works, I think you could literally just generate, you just pick from the pool of evils, you pick from the pool of the good characters, and you just randomly put them into a circle. Because that part's easy, because now it's logically, like, sound, right? You resolve any other ones which change things adjacent to them, whatever, but, like, from that, you have an answer. You have an answer which you can find of, like, the roles everyone is. The hard part about it is now everyone needs to say something, which either helps or doesn't help the case. And that's the thing, because you can put it in such an arrangement where it's impossible to figure out exactly who is telling the truth and who is lying. Like, for example, like, I can't remember what the role is, but there's one role which basically says how many people next to me are evil or not. And imagine, like, it's a, as they say, it's not called defective, what's it called? A trivial example. Well, it's not a trivial example, but it's a reduced example. Because a trivial example would be there's no characters on board, but that's always guaranteed to be, you know it to be correct. And one character on board, you always know it's correct because you know how many good and evil characters there are. But with two, if you know there's one good, one evil, if they're both a role, which is like how many characters next to me are evil, and if they, I guess actually that is always solvable, right? Now I think about it. Because a true character will always say one. No, because then the lie character could also lie. Right, yeah, no, hold on. Okay, so that's it. If they're two identical characters, which I think it's the lovers in Blood on Clock Tower, I can't remember what it is in this game, Demon's Bluff. And you get seen aboard where you see two lovers. One of them says, I have one person who's evil next to me, and the other says, I have one person who's evil next to me. That's a 50-50 shot. You don't know which one's telling the truth and which one's lying, because the one which is actually the lover does see one evil person next to them, and the one who's actually evil sees no evil people next to them. So they lie, and they say they're seeing one. That's straight up a 50-50 shot. That's an impossible puzzle. So how do you generate puzzles in such a way such that has to be avoided, that must be avoided? And the answer might be they don't. They might just have it, and then they hope they give you enough items and interactables where you can make them possible, essentially. Because there are some which is like you had to select on the character and then select a different character to figure out if they're the truth or not, and then that becomes so complicated at that point where it's like, okay, I think it might be impossible to figure out if it's solvable or not, because there could be some higher level logic which you use and reduce the states down to figure out if it actually is possible or not. But at that point, I suppose it becomes so unwieldy for like a human to even compute that. It doesn't matter if it's effectively impossible or not, because a human won't be able to tell the difference. But this is definitely one of the cases where knowing the logic, knowing the maths behind it could ruin it, right? Because if you work on a puzzle, if you're working under the assumption that it is actually a feasible, possible, solvable puzzle, then when you get it wrong, you're like, I'll get it next time. But if you learn from the get-go, oh, this is an impossible puzzle, you're not going to put that effort in, right? And it's going to feel really suckish. Like, you might as well just like end the run, just being like, oh, you randomly died, instead of let's generate you an impossible puzzle, which you must fail at, right? So I'm really curious what we do. Maybe we can look it up. Demon's Bluff. Is it guaranteed to be solvable? Based on player feedback and developer comments, Demon Bluff puzzles are not guaranteed to be 100% solvable through pure logic in every single scenario, particularly at high difficulties. Let's see. Yeah, pretty tricky. You look clock down muscle memory to solve. Some of rulings is different. Let's see. Hold on. I really want to like this game, but I can't enjoy something where it isn't programmed to be solvable. As you move up in assumptions, the puzzles get to a point where they have no logical solution. You have a better chance if you dismiss logic and just pick at random. One of the puzzles that was unsolvable, for instance, had these three left with no clues for anything else. I had one demon killed, Baker, Poisoner, Doppelganger. Is it real knight, Doppelganger? What? So I tried to kill the knight and it could not be killed because they were real knights, so the poisoner was telling the truth, therefore the baker must be evil. How am I supposed to figure out the doppelganger is a doppelganger, which means technically the poisoner is lying even though they acted like a real knight? So yeah, that does seem like it's going to be a make or break sort of thing about this. Like, you can't, in my opinion, like, one, I love this concept for a game. I think it's absolutely brilliant. But two, I don't think you can make I think it's so hard to justify in my head playing a logic puzzle game where if I get to the high difficulties, it becomes impossible, you know? Like, I think actually a lot of people will be totally fine with that, because how often will you run into that situation? I mean, that will make or break it, certainly. But I don't know, it's kind of like running into, it's like, you know, playing Binding of Isaac and you run into a glitch where you get put into a very, very fringe scenario where you're teleported like into a room with no exit and you're like, oh, I can't get out. Or where you soft lock your run. Like, that's what it is. It's a soft lock. It's not even a soft lock, it's actually a hard lock, if anything, because you cannot do anything from a run, but there's nothing you can do. No, maybe that is soft lock. No, hard lock is like you literally can't interact. So yeah, it's a soft lock for your run. And that seems like such a difficult problem to overcome, because I'm trying to think like how could you program it in a way such that it is always solvable by logic alone? I'm genuinely not sure if that even, because you'd have to basically program something to be able to solve your own puzzles, right? But to be fair, I think there's also a reasonable counterpoint that social deception games are not always 100% solvable either. I've played many a sort of werewolf game where it's not been possible to figure out the answer. You know, or there's so many situations going on where there's just not enough information or something like that. In fact, I would probably say like 99% of werewolf games that at least we play are not solvable, mainly because the information is not freely given, it's controlled by the people playing. But therein, I suppose, is because social deception games don't focus on necessarily the logic on it, but more of a social read. A lot of the times in the social deception game, you just have to make a read being like, I think you're lying. Not you are, like, it's very rare you get in a werewolf game, well, not very rare, but it's rarer to get a situation where it's like, you must be lying because of XYZ information, which I know, because it's often not that much public information. So yeah, it really is a tough issue. I don't know how you would overcome it. I think you would just have to figure out a way to make sure they're generated in an always solvable way, but if you always generate them in an always solvable way, I do worry as well that it becomes reductive. Like, it's like, oh, I always can tell these ones are evil because the logic generation always generates evil characters to vouch for each other or something. It would be cool though. I'm just trying to think how you would do it. Maybe like most complicated graph in existence or something. Or you'd have to be able to find a path to guarantee from 0 characters to however many characters you have via flow. I don't even know how you would do that. I mean, you could brute force it, I suppose. What I mean by that is, you basically generate all the characters and you generate everything they say, and then you run through every possibility of characters which can be in their spots instead. So like, if you have someone who says there's one person who's evil next to me, you generate every single arrangement, which includes that person as a villager telling the truth, that person as a villager lying, that person is evil telling the truth, that person's an evil lying, etc, etc, for every single possible role which could fill that thing. And then you check if every single one of those, if any of those have a contradiction. Otherwise, if it has a contradiction, then you know it's an impossible game state, and thus it can be ruled out. And then, as long as every single one except for the arrangement that you have can be ruled out, that would guarantee the game to be solvable through logic, right? Because that's like the worst case scenario, is that the worst case scenario in a logic game is you have to run through every single possible option there possibly could be, and then rule it out. Rule out every option except for one. That is probably really impossible to program. Because even if there's like 8 characters, 10 choices for each character or something, that gets insane. 10 to the 8? I mean, I guess it could run through 10 to the 8 computations, but I don't know, that seems really inefficient. To be fair, it would be significantly fewer, because if a character says something in a role, there's probably only like a handful of characters which could be in there. I mean, you have to make sure it's always solvable before you get to using activatable abilities, right? Or maybe not, because I don't even know how you would consider the situation when you use active ability on someone. No, because then it's not solvable by logic, unless you can figure out for sure who you need to use the active ability on. Oh, I don't know. What a complex programming situation to be in. I don't know how you would solve that, but That would be my guess. At least it works if it's really inefficient. But just run through literally every arrangement possibility and then make sure that it's logically inconsistent for all of them except for the real one. And if you find two which are logically consistent, then you just discard them. Oh, actually, it doesn't matter if there are two which are logically consistent, as long as those who are evil and those who are good align the same. Then it's fine, I think. And what an absolutely impossible problem to solve, and I'm glad I don't have to solve it. And maybe they won't even solve it, because, again, not every social deception game is solvable. Anyway, what a fascinating concept though. Social deception roguelite. And on that note, I'll round this episode up here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been dazzling. Likes, comments, description, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.